Well, I don't have much money, and I don't have much time, and I don't have many friends I could call mine. And I've been deceived, yeah, but haven't we all? I've seen the sun rise, and I've seen the sun fall. Well, I don't know why, and I don't know where, and I don't even know how, and I no longer care. But I've seen your face, and I've heard your call. Yes, I've seen the sun rise, and I've seen the sun fall. Let it go. Well, I've seen the sun hang like a flame in the sky. Yes, I've seen the sun turn, and I've seen the sun die. And I often think now, before our time is run, will there be any thoughts for what we have done? Well, I don't have much money, and I don't have much time, and I don't have many friends I could call mine.
Hello and welcome to another SDA Q&A, and my very special guest today is Alexander Carpenter. And Alexander is editor-in-chief and executive director of Spectrum magazine, the most influential magazine the Adventist Church has ever seen. And I would go that far. It has certainly been right there. For how many years now? Close to 60?
55 years.
55 years. So yeah. And so I wanted to start right off the bat saying what a great magazine I think it is, and I encourage everybody to go and check out. I think it's just spectrum.org.
Magazine.org, yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, if you just type in Spectrum SDA, it's the first one that comes up. So welcome, great to have you here. Just a quick little bit of housekeeping. Welcome everybody that is watching. David mentioned that he enjoyed yesterday's discussion on the scapegoat, Satan being the scapegoat, which is an Adventist kind of teaching. I don't know if you've ever had any articles on that before, but I'm sure we could go and search and find out. And tomorrow, everybody, for our Good News Fellowship, first time ever not going into the SDA Q&A platform. We're going into our new YouTube channel, that is set up just for Good News Fellowship. So if you come here, you will just see darkness and nothing happening. So I hope everybody remembers to go, and I'll bring it up onto the screen. Just go to YouTube, and if you put / at Gospel Good News Fellowship, you will find the channel. And I encourage everybody who enjoys our weekly Good News Fellowship gathering to go to that channel, because that is where we will be going live every week now. And it just kind of, I think it's going to be exciting to build it as a channel that's just focusing on that. People get a bit confused. SDAQ&A, you're doing all this robust, diverse, kind of sometimes stirring the pot conversations. And then you've got one that's just all about the good news, which I think blends well, but people who have no idea about Adventism are getting confused. So we're going to set up our own Good News Fellowship out here on the social media platform of YouTube. So there it is there. Come and join us tomorrow, everybody. And our guest speaker is Frank Merendino tomorrow. And next week, we have yesterday's time. So it's that Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. New South Wales, Australia. We've got a big debate between Stephen Beagles, the Bishop of Gospel Adventism, and Frank Merendino. And they're going to be talking about how plausible is it to be a progressive gospel Adventist within the Adventist Church. Stephen says yes, Frank says no. So it's going to be a very interesting debate. That's next week. But today, as I said, our very special guest is Alexander Carpenter, and all the way from Spectrum magazine. And Alexander, you've just come from an incredible 7 to 10 days at the 2025 GC session. Where was it? In St. Louis?
Yep. It was in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was 2 weeks. We were there.
Yeah, incredible.
So, yeah,
incredible.
It was very hot and humid in
Yeah.
more ways than one.
That's so true. Well, today we are going to talk all things GC. And I guess the biggest news, and I'm just going to let you then take over, but the biggest, because I want you to share highlights, share stories about your team. What was it like being there besides just the humidity in the room as well? Share as many things. I hope you've got some bullet points you can refresh your memory. But the big turning point is Ayrton Kohler is now the new president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Ted Wilson, after 15 years, is no longer the president. Mm-hmm. I guess, what were your thoughts when you heard that Ayrton was in? What were your thoughts there? Is there going to be much of a change? Over to you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Peter, for the opportunity to chat with you. I always enjoy our conversations, and I always appreciate this audience that you've built here. It's really a great community. So I see these names that Moto Sapien. I've seen that for over a year now. It's really great to see these different folks, different Davids and so on. So it's great to be with all of you again. I met with you the first Wednesday evening, if I remember correctly.
Yes, so that's right.
That was July 2 or 3, I think, something like that. So a fellow member of this community, Debbie, who was part of that show, had done some really great reporting on kind of some things that were going to happen, and we can kind of come back to that because that's kind of what happened Thursday. But you set us up for the big news, which probably everyone knows, huge change in terms of leadership, perhaps. And that is that the Wilson era might be over. And this might be something interesting to discuss with everyone more in depth, but we wrote about that. If you go back to 1990, you go back to 1979, when Neil Wilson became president of the General Conference. Of course, he was an administrator before that, and his father, Ted's grandfather, was in the Australasian division, I believe.
Yes.
So
He was head of, at the time, it was the equivalent, I think, to the SPD now, but back then I think they had them as unions.
Okay, awesome. Union, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and there's a little bit of a shadow of how he left, but I won't go into that because it's only speculation unless you've got actual evidence. I don't like to speculate, but I know that he was, at the time, people were saying that he was being groomed to be the GC guy. But ended up, I think, spending his days, was he a conference president somewhere or a union president over there in the States? So that didn't happen. But Neil comes along and the dynasty continues.
Yes, with Ted. So if you go from 1979 till 1990 for Neil Wilson, and then Ted Wilson, of the last 46 years of GC presidency, 27 of those years have been a Wilson as president. So almost 60% of
That's amazing.
the modern history of Adventism. We can debate the influence of the GC, but it is what it is, and whatever that is, it's been dominated by a family, and a family with an ideological bent, different managerial styles. Ted is not Neil, but we say Ted is a fundamentalist. We do not call him a conservative. We've got lots of conservatives in the spectrum world that are, great conversation partners, and there's lots of ways to define conservatism. I think it's a healthy, respectable ideology. And yet Ted was different. And so we explore, I think one of the important things is to recognize that Ayrton Kohler has the exact same fundamental beliefs as Ted Wilson. There's no daylight between. They are both on board with all 28. They're not going to change those beliefs. They are, dyed in the wool Adventist leaders. But there's a huge difference, and that difference is, this is how I tell it. Ted Wilson only reads the Bible and Ellen White, and occasionally the news when he has time for it, and I'm quoting him. Ayrton Kohler reads the Bible, reads Ellen White, but he also reads Emil Brunner. He also quoted from Emil Brunner in his sermon, a non-Adventist author, a neo-Orthodox theologian. He quoted from Gottfried Oosterwal, a pioneering missiologist at the seminary who talked about cultural contextualization and not just extracting people from cultures and making them Adventists, a longtime Spectrum writer. So in that way, there is a tone change, and I say it's a mindset change. So it's not an ideological change, but it's a mindset change. And Ted Wilson, it was very difficult to work with for many people, because when you only read the Bible and Ellen White and you believe they're inspired by God, then the only thoughts in your head are God-given inspired thoughts. And those sort of people are very difficult to work with.
Yeah. There's I interviewed Nathan Brown the other day, who,
great guy.
When I
put a
mentioned
review of his book up soon.
Yes. I mentioned we chatted about his book the other day, and when I mentioned you and that we would be chatting this week, he was very excited to hear that and spoke highly of you as well. Nice. And he mentioned that kind of Ted Wilson leadership was kind of narrow, not necessarily in the ideological sense, but I think that too. But yes, it's true. If people are very narrow in their own landscape of what they consume, it's difficult to have a conversation with them on anything outside of that.
Yeah, you don't want them at your dinner party.
Yes, yeah. Was because of that almost self-imposed focus on just the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Is that what created this 15 years narrative that has led the church back to a more traditional kind of, would you say his leadership has been the most, the main reason for that?
I think we're going to have to wait a little while to see what comes out. There still are lots of Ted Wilsons. I had in grad school, I had a Jesuit priest teaching a class, and it was on culture and religion. And he said that when John Paul II, passed away, that he was actually still alive in 300 bishops that he had elevated around the church, because he was, Pope for quite a while. So 15 years of Wilson means that there's some Wilsonian children around, not true heirs, but perhaps wanting. So we'll see what happens. Ayrton Kohler has a reputation for being a strong leader. And we had two guys on our team from Brazil that we flew up to GC session, Andre and Felipe. They were so fun. They have a background in Adventist, Pathfinders and the whole kind of lockstep. Ayrton Kohler created the world's biggest Pathfinder program in Brazil. So in America, they have about, the International Camporee in the US has about 60,000 Pathfinders. The South America Division Pathfinder Camporee has 200,000.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, they do it over 2 weekends.
Wow.
Because they just can't handle it all that in one weekend. So yeah, he really, and he talked a little bit about that in one of the press conferences that he did, because he saw that as a way of building up the church, which is really investing in it. It's kind of, people talk about evangelism, and this wasn't just direct, Wilsonian evangelism. I'm trying to think about Wilson talking about Pathfinders. I'm sure he did, but he wasn't like talking about youth and caring about youth. A longtime church leader kind of opened my mind to this. And Ayrton Kohler was a youth leader before he became division president. So he was division youth leader. Right. And during the Jan Paulsen era, he was put in as division president at age 38. And this longtime church leader said that youth leaders make better conference presidents than pastors often.
Right.
Because when you're a youth leader, you really have to, number one, relate to people different than you. Like if you can't be an effective youth leader if the 18-year-olds think you're lame.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've got to have an ability to connect with young people, which generally means you can connect with any age.
Yeah. And you got to be flexible. You got to be loose. You can't be self-important, because they'll sniff that out and you'll have no one cool following you.
Yes.
At least. And then you also have to run things. You can't, a pastor takes skills to run a church, incredible skills. You have to combine that with like camp and throwing large events and coordinating a lot of things. And you got to be able to, hit your marks and get things done.
Yes.
So I think that is evident in what might be coming from Ayrton Kohler. Ted Wilson just wasn't that kind of guy.
Yeah.
He was not. He was the son of a GC president who got kind of interested in van ministry in New York and always had this like nostalgia for New York. That was kind of, I've read a bit about that era, and I think that's where he got his self-supporting bona fides a little bit, is because that was kind of in that kind of like, I don't know, Jesus movement 70s era.
Yes. Where
you could do something that was kind of edgy, but it was actually quite conservative.
Yes.
That kind of ministry. And from there, he was often, doing a little bit of pastoring, and then he was kind of elevated He was division president in Russia for just a few years, 4 years, I think. That's it.
Mm.
But just enough to get that kind of stamp on there. He was down in
Yeah.
Africa with Reiner Broomsma, who's written about that time. So yeah, he wasn't really a gifted administrator in the
Yeah.
sense of just really creating something huge. I mean, he was in charge of Review and Herald, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. This kind of leadership, like, do you know, mental blank on names. I'll come to it later. I won't forget. But this kind of leadership model that Ted Wilson had and followed, and in many ways his father, Neil Wilson, was more like Ayrton Kohler. Very charismatic, very effective leader, good at organizing events, very much a people's person. I actually met Neil Wilson in maybe 1986 or 88. I was living in New Zealand and teaching at the Papatoe School there, and the local conference had a morning worship. He was touring and passing through the country, and there were maybe 7 or 8 of us at this breakfast worship program, and he was there, and that's what stood out. He had this charisma, and very personable, very very strong presence. Not and I chatted to him, and I even asked him a question which, now that I look back, I can see where my stirring the pot personality came from. I said to him in front of the others, I said, "So what's the deal with the Adventism sort of dying out in the West but doing really well in other parts of the world? What are you guys doing to try and increase the numbers in our part of the world?" And I can't remember his answer, but I remember it was very, very warm and non-scripted in a way. So you have these kind of leadership personalities and whatnot, but underneath Ted Wilson's message, Neil Wilson's message, and perhaps Ayrton Kohler's message, the theological message is the same. Could that therefore mean that the church plunges into an even more traditional focus because of the skills of Ayrton, or because of his skills, it kind of means that he's forced to open it up more as the big tent kind of Adventism that you've spoken of in the past? Like, is there a danger? Do you know where I'm getting at here? That his skills, because his engine room's the same as Neil and Ted, and there's Ted Wilson's everywhere in the church still, could his captain leadership skills therefore navigate the Adventist ship into even more fundamental areas?
Well, that's what some of our early, 2 years ago reporting was looking at. When he was the youth leader, he wrote a column for the equivalent of the Record or the Review, whatever, down there, and he would kind of tisk about pop culture and those sort of things, video games, rock music, the usual stuff that those sort of types do. So we were worried about that. And we'll see if that's his modus operandi. But right now, his sermon on the last Sabbath, he did a quick sermon that was already planned because of his executive secretary role about mission. Wasn't really memorable, but the second one was, and I think that gave us some insight because he had 3 Ellen White quotes and he had 5 quotes from non-Ellen White, non-Bible people. So, and the Ellen White quotes were not deployed like Ted Wilson used them, kind of to browbeat people about a thing, like kind of those heavy testimonies type quotes.
Yeah.
These were inspirational, devotional, kind of the sort of thing that the Reclaiming the Prophet book is encouraging people towards understanding that what her role is. So in that way, we'll see what the he's a gifted, strong leader, and he uses that to break us out of some of the boring, divisive issues that we're sort of tired of talking about, and can move things forward, you know, it would be incredible if he can come up with a way for us to kind of do the women's ordination thing right. And it probably needs to be at that level. Of course, unions have been able to ordain, and that's helpful progress. But we just need to let all the women and all the people who support women's ordination know that they are equal, not only in the sight of God, but also in the sight of the church.
That's
and
right.
That needs to be done in a very formal way. And if he can fight off the fundamentalists and keep the church together and keep them donating money and all the things that they want to do, then that could be a good thing. So that's kind of where I would like to see, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road for me. You can be the sort of leader who gets up and talks about a big tent, and but if you lose the self-supporting crowd, if you lose some doctrinaire church leaders, then you become a weak leader, and it doesn't matter what you say, it's all words if you can't get it done.
And I think a truly skilled leader, and I have been watching him for a while now, and I would deem him to be one of those truly skilled leaders. I think he will be able to at least present the church and his leadership as being effective in a way that only truly good leaders can do, if that makes sense, where a lot of people will go away feeling, oh yeah, I'm being heard, whether they are or not. And the whether they are or not is only going to be revealed over the next year or two.
Yeah, we do not. Yeah, it seems like yes, we're familiar with the leader where you leave the office, you think that they're on the same page as you, and then you find out that it's not nothing happened.
yes, yeah.
Those guys want to be your friend.
Exactly.
They can't actually take the hits, and
yes,
I think Ayrton Kohler can take a punch.
Oh yes, that's why I think he's beyond just a good leader. I think he can take a punch, he can give a punch, and I think he'll be able to keep the fundamental traditional Adventists very happy. And I think where I'll be deciding for my own, in my humble experience, my humble opinion, whatever, that the progressives is how he's are the ones who are going to be tricked into thinking he's on their side and doing something, or he actually will do stuff that's good for them.
Well, I'll actually say I'm fine with him. I don't want to hurt him, no, but I want to be critical of him. And if we can disagree on 3 things and agree on 2 things, and on those 2 things we actually get something done, yes, I think that's great. We're not purity culture Nazis here. We're interested in people who I understand the real world of Adventism pretty well, and I recognize that there's a lot of folks to feed, and there's a lot of deals to be done in terms of you're running a giant corporation, you're working with HR and legal and all these things that are complex and not fun at all for me to think about, but I'm glad people are thinking about that, because it is a livelihood in a community. And if we have a leader who understands that and has to do things that we criticize from and by that I mean from Spectrum and other progressives, and it's a healthy exchange, and it doesn't shut him down. Ted Wilson really took that he's very thin-skinned in a way.
Yeah,
So a bit
yeah,
of criticism just turned
yeah,
off the communication.
yeah,
And if, I'm fine if he, gives us some critique, because
yeah.
it's helpful to hear. I appreciate that kind of openness. And if he can take it, and then we can also find something that we align on and get it done, I think that'll be really, really good.
Well, I think in recent years, the progressive Adventist has felt like they don't have a home within Adventism.
No, you're totally right.
I'd say
Huge.
45 years. I'd say since Glacier View. And that's why I think he will be very effective in all the other regards to Adventism, in all the other little subcultures. I think they will feel they have a home. I even feel like your Ron Kellys and your Conrad Vines are going to feel that they once again have a home as well under Erton. The big rub for me is, will progressive Adventists again find a home within Adventism, or will they not, or will they be tricked into thinking they have?
Yeah.
My gut feeling is the third one. I think the progressives are about to be tricked into thinking they have a home, or I think they will find they don't have a home. I don't think, again, this is just me thinking off the top of my head, I don't think he deep down wants progressive Adventism to have a home. I think at the core of Adventist theology, the progressive, as Ron Kelly said on the show the other day, the progressive Adventist unravels Adventism.
See, that is, I will
push back.
Yeah. For number one, let's not take Ron Kelly's frame. He got fired by that conference, not me, not lots of progressive Adventists.
No.
So
I don't think he's a progressive, by the way.
No, of course. No. But what I'm saying is, he said progressives unravel. He unraveled his own job. He unraveled the church.
Yeah.
Because he became so ideologically focused on one thing that he lost perspective, I would say. So
no, I agree. And just to jump in there just quickly, I think that what surprised me about Conrad Vine and the Ron Kelly movement is, for the first time ever, I saw traditional conservative Adventists unraveling their own church. That blew my mind.
So this is really a fun conversation, and we have lots of other news from GC session, but actually I'm going to kind of open up a thing that I think might be fun, because of course we love to talk about Des Ford. And many people here know way more about that than me. So I think it's really interesting, because both Neil Wilson and Ted Wilson backed themselves into big public woundings of Adventism. They kind of got themselves into, these things that were almost on like live, global, painful wounds that still are with us today. Ted Wilson did this with women's ordination. He did it. He actually went to 2 unions in the U.S., if you remember, in 2012. So within 2 years of him becoming GC president, stood up on the stage at the Pacific Union constituency session and the Columbia Union constituency session, said, please don't vote for women's ordination. And he lost 80 to 20%. Like he just, and and Neil Wilson, I don't want to get deep into but he created this kind of, he couldn't figure out how to navigate something. And so he created he added fuel to the fire and created this, he didn't solve it. He actually drew more attention to it, got more people invested. And you saw this again going back to Thursday before the election. Thanks to Debbie's reporting, we were aware a lot of Australia churches were part of this kind of movement to undo the official GC business meeting agenda and insert some open discussions about women's ordination, but also about the vaccine mandate statements and that kind of thing. Official statements, not mandates, but official statements. And it was really interesting because Ted Wilson has known this has been coming for years, if not months, and if not weeks. And what happened is we just backed ourselves right into this like dumb hours long thing where people were putting up motions. And by that, I don't mean the people, but we just, they're going to kind of do this thing we keep seeing over and over at these meetings where people put up motions, then people who don't have a lot of experience with parliamentary procedure want to speak, but they only get 2 minutes, which feels very limiting, and they're cut off. And then you had the GC vice president who was running that, Stelle, who they had put in place because he gets things done, but he is from he was in the Soviet military, and he can sometimes be a little cheeky in the way that he gets things done. And so you had these moments, if you remember, where somebody would make a motion and then he would say, I don't hear a second. Okay. Not moved. And he'd do that within like 2 seconds. And there's 2,000 people out there. It's absurd to think. So it's like on this giant stage and people are feeling, that they're being made fun of. And then all this goes on. Everyone gets 2 minutes, 3 minutes with translation. And then Ted Wilson, the wizard, comes out from behind the curtain and he gives a 16-minute speech. No one else gets 16 minutes. And he just says, we're not going to do this. And then they basically call this vote and it's over. And
blew my mind watching
it was just like, wherever you are on that, I obviously didn't support the vaccine mandate discussion. But, it was an interesting, they're raising some interesting points about statements and that sort of thing. But there would be much healthier ways to get that done. And nobody likes to see an administrator, whether you're a kid in academy or a union president who just got, shut down by your church leader, who gets more time and kind of just harangued everyone. That was just, again, the Wilsonian thing of just unnecessarily creating a big moment. And then, maybe it's a Pyrrhic victory. They win the victory, but they actually lose the larger battle. They lose hearts and minds, and it's just not a healthy way of doing things.
Yeah. And that was done again and again. And Erton definitely is the kind of leader that won't do that. And
we hope. We hope.
As we were saying, I genuinely hope that the Progressive Adventist does find a home again. During the Jan Paulson era, we were all felt we had a home, even though it was post-Glacier View. And we felt that the home was being more solidified, if that's the right word. In many ways, the Reclaiming the Prophet book being banned recently, if this is republished by Pacific Press, that will be a great sign that Progressive Adventists do have a home.
Keep hope alive. I think there might be some movement now that Ted's gone.
Yeah. But particularly if it's under an official publication. I can imagine Spectrum getting a hold of all the authors and saying, look, we'll publish it independently for you or something like that. But in some ways, that's not the great win. It's great for everybody who gets the chance to read it. But church leadership needs to say, hey, you are welcome here. And that's not what we've been feeling.
I have some things to say on that. Number one, Dale Galusha, president of Pacific Press, I went out to dinner with him and Mary Kay MacLeod.
Yes,
people know her as Silver as well.
Yeah.
So, and then he was at our event. So he is the publisher of this through Pacific Press. And really the issue is that the Wilsonian Ellen White estate, and I think Wilson was involved, but I don't have the hard facts on that. He certainly didn't stop the White estate pressure, but there's some efforts to actually reach out to the GC White estate, and then also the North American division, which is actually the entity that owns Pacific Press. I think with Wilson gone, there's an effort to revisit this, create a way forward that doesn't alienate, maybe brings on the Ellen White estate if possible. There's some pretty conservative leaders who really appreciate that book and think it could be healthy for the church. And then there's lots of progressives who wrote for it too. And so it's a really, I was there at the working conference and helped support the effort. So we're very invested in that book and very supportive of it. And, it is an attempt to make a very honest appraisal of Ellen White's reliance on other authors and really deal with that. And recognize that she is not an authority on the Bible. She's not an authority on history. She's not an authority on science, but she can be useful for people in their spiritual life. And so she can be read as a devotional author, which is how she discussed a lot of her own value. And there's lots of people, George Knight, Niels Erik Andreasen, long-time, well-loved authors who contributed to this argument. So I think I really appreciate your support of the book, Peter. And I think it's the sort of thing that is provocative and not unraveling, as Ron Kelly said. It's actually constructive. And I want to make this point really clear. I will always be an Adventist. I am interested in solutions journalism. And what that means is we're critical, but we're also constructive. So I am not interested in unraveling the church. In fact, I'm interested in building up the church. And anyone who kind of thinks about fragile Adventism needs to walk through Loma Linda University Medical Center and realize that it was constructed by, people who were not far off the farm 100 years ago. And it's incredible to see what could happen and walk through Advent Health University, led by some really forward-thinking leaders. We did a thing on how they are focused on their environmental impact. They're cutting their carbon emissions, saving $100 million. That's a billion dollar a year revenue producing Adventist entity. So I want to emphasize the fact that when you're talking about unraveling, you're not going to unravel. These are big institutions that have an effect on the world, and Adventism should be proud of the fact, we like to get in the weeds of some of these small debates over issues or these big causes that we care about, but it's important to recognize that Adventism, is a thing that will be here for several generations. It's not going to disappear. And we have to, if we want to have a healthy discussion, we have to take that bigness seriously. And that's why the GC president matters. That's why what happens at the GC session matters, as weird as it is, as, in the middle of the Midwest of America, all these people, mostly their talents wasted sitting there in business sessions. Those are all realities that we can kind of shake our heads at and think, what did I just sit through for 2 weeks? What was going on?
I know what's going on. It's interesting that you and I think, share common ground in that we are very interested in this. And we both see a valid kind of Adventism. This kind of Adventism, the Ellen White as a devotional, inspirational person, doesn't unravel Adventism's big picture, it unravels the traditional Adventists' approach.
Nice, yeah.
In a very big way. And I think that I spoke to 3 people just after the GC vote, all ordained pastors, one at union level. One said, "Who's Erton Kohler?" One said, "Oh, what? Who got in? Did Ted Wilson lose?" And the other one said, "Oh, I don't follow the politics." And I thought, if you are caring about the polarizations within the church, which cause definite problems and can lead to mental health concerns, you are an ordained worker for the church, it behoves you to be involved and know what's going on.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2 independent kind of people spending hours and
that's right,
the stuff because we're invested in trying to tease apart, for those who are suppressed and for those who are finding it difficult to find a place to call home. I read recently, I should find the actual quote. I've got it just here. I'll just quickly read it, because I thought of Adventism when I read it, and I screenshot it. In the 1990s, scientists grew trees in a sealed biosphere, but couldn't figure out why the trees kept falling over and not maturing. They eventually realized that the perfect growing environment lacked wind, which provides stress and ensures trees grow strong enough to support themselves. And I thought of the Adventist church. When there is a home for these guys, when there is a home for traditional Adventists, progressives, and every kind of Adventist you can imagine, that's when the strength of the forest of Adventism can occur and grow. And I think that what has happened is Adventism percolates in a biosphere that is all nice and warm and safe and friendly for the traditionals. The progressives have their nice little Sabbath school rooms. What I love and is common ground about you and I is we are the wind that's blowing on the trees, and they may not like it, but it is strengthening the body.
Yeah.
And I think it also strengthens those who have decided to leave, because it has created a conversation, a dialogue, a narrative where people go, do you know what? I feel strong enough now to not be an Adventist, or I feel strong enough now to be an Adventist and stand up. I feel strong enough to get behind books like this. And I think that that's important. And it really annoys me when people have said this of you. I've heard people absolutely crucify Spectrum and yourself, that you're attacking. It's not attacking, it's strengthening. We're offering an opportunity to use your brain and start thinking about this sort of stuff.
Yeah. I was really proud of my team. I had 17 Spectrum staff at the GC session. We had, the largest independent media entity there, except for like 3ABN, of course. And these were all folks in their, 18 to, mid 40s, but mostly in their 20s. And we realized they were going to do press conferences every day. And so I had a couple of my members always there. And the first one, we asked the most questions of the new president. I was really proud. We asked the second question, and it was on women's ordination and LGBTQ openness. And wow. I could tell Erton Kohler did not love that the second question.
Yes, I saw that.
He was like, really moment. The second question?
Yes.
But hey, this is not church decorum. Let's wait 5 questions, whatever whatever the rule is.
Yeah.
You just gotta go. And he actually answered. He didn't break any news there. I asked him specifically about the role of the free press in Adventism, and he said that Spectrum belongs in Adventism. So we're really holding on to that, recognizing that he sees a role for us, and I do see him actually taking some action with right now that is backing that up. So it wasn't just words. He's sort of thawing out a few things that needed to be thought out and thought out too. Haha. So I appreciate that. I saw there was a thing in here. I know I saw somebody didn't like that I was talking about good things, and they're mentioning, I think, Schley. Mormons do too, and they worship a false god just like Adventism. That's let's take a functional perspective on this, which is what I'm just saying is, hey, these things exist. I don't agree with Mormon beliefs, but we have to think about this in terms of the way that we've learned to think thanks to the scientific method, which is you don't start from Aristotelian or Platonic verities, and then if you follow all those things, then you arrive at divine truth. In fact, you test, you see what exists. There's lots of religious quacks who have launched really great things. They have had good ideas mixed with bad ideas. And I would say that Adventism and Mormonism has some good ideas mixed with bad ideas. I happen to be born into Adventism, and I like it better. I think there's, I'm an advocate for a lot of the good things, and I want to critique some of the and maybe even get rid of some of the bad things in Adventism. I mean, I definitely do. So yeah, I don't think we can start just by like, hey, we're however religions function is where I kind of start my conversation. They're existing. What are they doing? How are they toxic? Is that rooted in something that cannot be fixed, or is we have this conversation with Catholicism. There's lots of there's been times when I was like, as a progressive, the one Adventist belief I like is those Catholics, they're abusing children. This is horrible. This is systemic. There's lots of evidence for this. This is not good. But at the same time, you can have new leadership. There can be a tonal change, maybe even a actual ethical change. And, there's a complicated history. Sometimes that, there's some beautiful things that a flawed religion can provide humanity. So that's where I kind of come into this conversation is I'm not looking for perfection, purity. I'm looking for, hey, it exists. What can we learn from that? And is there something maybe that's worth preserving?
Yeah. And Schley, I really appreciate your comments, and I appreciate replies and the opportunity that also affords Alexander to answer, because the analogy of the biosphere where there's no wind and the trees therefore aren't maturing and growing is something that Adventism in some ways is. In many ways it produces weak trees, and what we're trying to do here is stimulate the kind of conversation that creates stronger people inside or outside of the church. Now, I just want to address for a minute, Alexander, and then I want to get back into your Mary Kay stuff. I'm dying to learn more about that. I'm a huge fan of hers, and you've sent me her contact details.
Yeah, hopefully
and
you can get her on the show.
I'll try and get her on the show very soon. But I do know a little bit about publishing. I had my own label for. I just also want to share and give my sister-in-law a little plug. So running a record label is similar, because you have publishing rights within that and publishing companies, and there's just a few questions about, well, why don't they release it on Kindle and just through Acorn and other places? And they're good questions, but when this is a grab here of my sister-in-law's website, and she is an author, and she is an independent author. She's had many people approach her official publishing houses because she's sold over 4 million books, and she's an independent author. So go and check her out, Jean Granger. Go and buy one of her books. She's an awesome author. But when you sign to a publisher, you lose a lot of rights. That's why she's not signing to a publisher, because she can go to Kindle, Amazon, Facebook. Anyway, she wants to advertise her books, she's free to do what she wants. But as you see the little logo on the back here, Pacific Press, that is a publishing house. So these authors signed a deal with the publisher. This is how it normally works anyway, I'm assuming. And once you do that, they have the rights to stop it, release it, go worldwide, sell it in the church, and that's it. They can do whatever they like. They own the rights to that, and the artist or author gets a royalty. So they usually are contracted for a period of time, sometimes 3 to 5 years. So these guys may not have the chance to sell it independently. And I even wondered, when you made it available, Alexander, on your Google Drive, if you got any pushback.
Well, let's not muting Peter right now.
Yeah, muting. Yeah. Oops, sorry. Did I say it was available? So anyway, that's the struggle that they will have, in that they may not get a chance to release it anywhere else unless the Pacific Press releases them from the contract. I just wanted to say that, because a lot of people think, oh, just make it available in other ways. I even wanted to approach the authors and get them to read a chapter on the show, but they would potentially be breaching copyright there. So that's just a little bit. And also Rick said the 2015 GC gave you the push to start SDAQ&A, right? No, I actually, that was the push that got me to leave the Adventist Church, the women's, the no vote there. But I think I'd started SDAQ&A a little bit before it, or maybe a little bit. Yeah, no, a little bit before it. Well, I definitely started SDAQ&A while I was an Adventist. I think all of season 1 I was an Adventist at the time. And then I didn't do much for a couple of years. And then we had lockdown and Bill Johnson interview, season 2, bang, the whole thing took off. But yeah, I left the church based on the 2015 women's vote. But yeah. Just answering that. Schley says the problem with Peter is that all those Adventists have doctrinal differences. Yeah, that's true. They do. And Schley, I personally am not as hopeful as Alexander is. Alexander and I can be friends, even though we disagree with that. He's a lot younger than me. I personally feel that all that Adventists can really hope for, the progressives, is a good, strong cultural Adventism. I don't think, because at its core, Ellen White's special message, she cannot be seen as a devotional writer. I just personally think the Adventist Church will never truly have a home and a place for progressives. And that's why Schley, people like yourself and me, left, because we feel that. But those who stay because they are, deciding it's their choice to stay and build a better place, that's their right to do that as well.
Yeah, I would jump in there and say that I think Adventists can not just be cultural influencers, but also I think they can be good institutional leaders. We need to rethink how governance operates. Right now, a lot of institutional boards are full of church administrators who just have these de facto roles on the board just because they happen to be a union president, or you have to have, look at some of these boards and it's just clear that people get put on the board just because of the church leadership role they have, not because they're actually helpful in operations or strategy or finance. And there's a lot of presidents of university boards who wish they could reform those boards, because a good, healthy institution has these amazing people on there that you bring on who, maybe a Coca-Cola executive who really understands, marketing to youth or something like that. You can put that person on your board and have, actually create effective change on
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
on that sort of thing, I do see that progressives, Advent Health is the last president, is part of a new thing that Spectrum has launched called the Board of Visitors. So he took that, basically doubled their revenue from 10 to $20 billion. And they have over 100,000 employees. Big is not better by default. I'm not saying that, or that it's the perfect corporation or anything like that. It just is a thing. And so that kind of ability is just, there's a lot of Adventists who don't have that administrative skill. And Ted Wilson is a shrinker of Adventism. He really, when he had a meeting in 2010 with Weimar, he said, "You're the blueprint for Adventist education." Okay, this is a school that's struggling to hit like 100 students.
Wow.
And that's how Ted thought. Ted thought small. Ted stood on the street corner in New York City for 2 days and handed out great controversies to people because he, we don't want a leader. There's something that we like about leaders, which is that they put their money where their mouth is. They walk the talk. Ted did not commit a ethical failure in like the kind of obvious sense. The guy went to the SPD and did a couple weeks of evangelism series in Papua New Guinea. He walked that talk. So, we can give him his flowers for that. But, I don't want my GC president taking, 24 working hours and failing to understand that in New York City, the person handing out stuff is an idiot. And the only person taking those are, they are not critically thinking, sophisticated New Yorkers generally. You're just not, you don't understand the culture.
It's like a guy with a placard around his neck.
Exactly.
The end of time is nigh.
Yes.
And literally that's what the book is saying. And look, I think, and I often bring up my little slide here where I feel, generally speaking, there are 4 kind of main groups. You got your progressive Adventists, your traditionals, your leadership, which is almost a group of their own overseeing this lot. And you've got that green, the cultural Adventists inside. And I think it'd be nice to see the cultural Adventist expand. And therefore, when I interviewed Rain de Brinsma last, I said to him at the end, I said, "Now tell me what's something the Adventist church brings to the world that's unique and different, but don't include schools, churches, and its education system." And there was a little smile because he knew what I was kind of getting at, and so he sort of hesitated, and and I guess my point is that your progressive Adventists, women employment at top levels, wouldn't it be great to see women having the opportunity to be the GC president, opening it up to the diverse kind of people that are there. Leadership are the ones that need to say, you are all welcome. And if leadership does that, and he may have the ability to do that, at least they will feel they have a place in any of those different subgroups that I drew up there. I think at its core, though, the Adventist Church special message, which is to tell the world, prove to the other angels and the other planets that Satan's claim you can't keep the commandments, that little nutshell core teaching, the cultural Adventists, the progressives have to jettison that. They have to put Ellen in a devotional setting. And I just think the traditional Adventist is not going to let that happen. I think they're going to dominate this side of the kingdom. And if people can deal with that and accept it, fine. But at least if people know about it, they can be like myself and Schley and leave. If they choose to. And they can stay if they choose to. but at least they've been informed. And I think the great, you look at the history of Spectrum magazine, wow, that it has it has blown Adventism in its midship so many times, not to destroy it, but just to go, hey, take this one to the belly, toughen up, and look what's real. What is really going on here?
Yeah,
that's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, well, I think that's it's all debate until you do what this guy Roy Branson did with the very classic 1919 Bible Conference issue, which he took those transcripts.
Hold that up. For some reason, you dropped out there.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure if you were holding something up. Oh, I'm just going to turn that around. We're a bit mirror image there. There we go. Oh, yes, yes. Now, that's the guy that started the whole Spectrum, isn't it?
Well, he was the longtime editor in the late 70s with Chuck Scriven, and then by himself through the 80s, and then most of the 90s.
Right.
But he was very influential before that, and was at Harvard with a couple of other Adventists like Larry Garrity, Alvin Queeram, Jim Londas was at Boston University studying philosophy. But yeah, that kind of early Adventist Forum chapter was quite influential in the whole thing. So he gets a lot of credit, but actually some of the wives of the guys who were in grad school were the main organizers and glue that kept things going in the early days. So we want to give them a shout out. People like Verla Queeram, and some of the Jillian Garrity. There we go. So I want to just say, number one, I always love the Aussie language thing. I like your trad ad and prog ad thing there. It's just,
I think that's the way that you Aussie. I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't. It's just no. I mean, it's such a. I've just never. You just don't find that kind of construction in American English all the time as much. It's just fun the way you guys just create these like little slang new words.
Oh yeah, we're good at shortening things. We like to, if your name's Stephen, you're going to be called Steve-O.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for showing.
Yeah, actually, this is where people can go, and for some reason,
if you scroll down a little bit, you can click on something and it'll show all our GC session reporting.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find that.
Just keep going down. We moved.
Is that it there?
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, click that badge and it'll. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Yeah, there's about 40 articles there that we did in 2 weeks, plus actually more this month. Let's say.
Yeah. And people can go.
People should read the comics that we did. Those were really fun.
Oh yes, the times they are changing. Is that it?
Yeah.
Let's open up a couple of those.
Yeah, that was great. Those are really fun. That was Felipe Carmo.
Yeah.
He's a amazing guy. Brought over from the. This is fun because they keep having these meetings. Thank God the next one's going to be in Indianapolis, so maybe it won't be in the deep south or this so humid. But there's some just really funny things like the Kohler toilets that exist, and different people who were like this delegate from the Netherlands was bothered by the fact that people only had 2 minutes, so she just kept showing up and probably got 20 minutes of comment time, 2 minutes each, which is smart.
Oh, that's classic. And there's the web address there, spectrummagazine.org.
Thanks. Yeah. Maybe if I can just we've talked a lot about Ayrton Kohler. And
let's get on to some other things now.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to just remind folks is GC session is not just about the president. That's the thing that happens on Friday where the nominating committee quickly selects an executive behind closed doors before the sun sets.
Yes.
But then we were off and running, and I think, there's different people selected for jobs, so that's part of it, and then some debate over some issues. There was no big women's ordination like moment where we had a midweek big, debate, discussion, fight, and vote, anything like that. But it was very clear that that the people who were being selected for roles on average were more, the selection was towards people who had personalities focused on cooperating, I would say. So they brought the kind of change that happened there was, I know I'm more hopeful than you, Peter, and this is one of the reasons, is just the sort of people that were selected, were willing to engage with spectrum already. And so we're hopeful that those kind of relationships can be strengthened. And then the other thing is that there was, some debate about including a woman on the GC Ministerial Association. And so that was something that happened in the nominating committee, and it got voted. And so it is a significant step forward, not just the wife of a pastor, but an actual, kind of professional there. So that was a step forward, I think, for people who care about, women and ministry and equality and, small changes that may foretell some bigger things on the horizon. And then the last thing I'll say is Ayrton Kohler's sermon. He didn't do the classic "We Have This Hope" song. Instead, he had people sing the Hallelujah chorus, which is, it's not written by an Adventist.
No.
And it was beautiful. And he ended, and I really want to underline this. He ended by saying, and I'm paraphrasing, "Do you feel that feeling that we all have?" 20, 40,000 Adventists all singing together from around the world, this really beautiful sense of connection. Who cares what people believe? We're in this space. We're united in something beautiful. And he said, this feeling, this connectedness, let's share it with the world. He didn't say, here's some truths that we need to share. Here's some tracks we can take out. He said feeling. And that's different. That's profound. It's very, well, let's say it's not traditionally talked about Adventism, but it is something that is relative. We're often afraid of talking about feeling. It's very effective. And I think people who were there recognized a tonal change. And if he's saying, if what he said is what he believes, then the thing that Adventists can share, and he definitely believes we need to take the gospel to the whole world. But if that gospel is proven by a sense of connectedness, which is, I believe, deep spirituality, connectedness to each other, the world, the spiritual profoundness of oneness, whatever that means, is a way of talking about being Adventist that I think could be quite revolutionary. I'm not saying that it's going to change the world or change Adventism, but it could change the way Adventists think about mission and take us away from kind of 28 fundamental belief recipe lists, and maybe have us talk about how we can create a sense of connectedness and we know that feeling. And when you feel connected to someone,
Yeah.
it's really amazing. We had this, my team, we had people who, when you get on in age, I think you start to realize that these friendships that you had in your teens or 20s, that, my buddies from that time, those who are still my buddies, are real buddies, real friends, real mates, as you guys say in Australia. And those sort of things are very profound. It's not like you run into someone in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, and you have that history. Now, if you do create a good friendship, a good connection, that can be wonderful. But there is something really beautiful about connectedness, and Adventism provided that. Like, we had people on our team that we only know because they're Adventists and they kind of like the things that Spectrum do. And we had so much fun. And we ended with our own thing on the Spectrum team. We decided, we worked very hard. Everyone was in the office by 9 a.m. And we worked through the day. We had our team meeting. And then people were up late working on projects, blowing off steam each night, and then back in, everyone on task with me, kind of working through the stories of the day, seeing where things were at. We had reporters, copy editors, and then the web producers cranking out content across all our social media platforms. We had 1.3 million views of our GC session stuff thus far. And we ended by deciding everyone wanted to do karaoke. So we had, in one of the Airbnbs that we had some large screens, and they figured out how to do it with YouTube, and so much fun. Here we are hanging out across generations, across culture. I've got Stanton, born in Liberia. We've got two guys from Brazil. I've got an intern who is now in Indonesia, a student at La Sierra University, wrote about liberation theology for us for his piece. Really brilliant 19-year-old. And then kids from all over, a couple of queer kids, all of us just singing songs and goofing off and having fun and headbanging and laughing and rapping. And somebody did like this incredible, like almost operatic, it's amazing when you do that. You're like, oh, this person can sing like that. I never would have guessed. It's always
reveals
cool.
All sorts of unexpected skills.
Yeah. So we still talk about it and we have fun. And that kind of connectedness is, I saw it in that moment with church, and then I saw it with this team. And that's what I hope to kind of give folks who are kind of looking for connection out there here on SDAQ&A. I love that you connect people, Peter. And the more we do that, I think the more we can be a force for healing in our world.
Yeah. And I think that kind of big tent, anything, whether it be in Adventism or big, I remember taking my daughter. I've still wear the entry band to the Coldplay concert when they came to Sydney, and I took my daughter, and she's 12, and we're singing along, and there's 90,000 people, and that sense of community. And what's the guy's name? The lead singer? Chris James. Is it Chris?
No. Somebody will tell us here, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Married to Gwyneth Paltrow for a while, right?
Was, but he was speaking on really good topics of virtue and honor and supporting each other, and then he would have a QR code come up on the screen, and people could donate to Save the Trees, New South Wales, or whatever. He had a big platform at the back that people could go and dance on, and that was powering the batteries that were going to run the show the next night. And it was just that good stuff, and it can be found in all sorts of places and needs to be found in all sorts of places. Just a quick thing. Moto Sapien says, Peter, for your information, when you make long comments, it gets cut off to us. The last one ended it. Do you mean, Moto Sapien, when I'm talking or when I bring something up onto the screen? We'll check that. But one thing I think, and I remember for me during the Jan Paulsen era, and I'm not sure of his time period, but I know throughout the 90s into the early 2000s, there was that great big tent vibe going on, all not just here in Australia. I traveled to America, Europe, Japan, Philippines. I was traveling all over the place. And there was this sense that you speak of, that you experienced, this sense of community and collaboration and camaraderie, and we've got a mission to make life better for people, was almost palpable. It was a beautiful time. One of the things that I'll just bring up that Frank Marendino said, which I'm interested in your thoughts, and maybe this is what Moto Sapien was saying, that it does, when I bring up longer comments, it cuts them off. So I'll read on what may be missed.
Oh yeah, I see that.
But Frank makes an important observation. If we reduce Ellen to a devotional author, in some ways, are we taking away the unique identity of Adventism and making it just like any Protestant kind of movement that we try and resurrect with good feelings of camaraderie, and it'll ebb and flow from needing a good kick up the butt to being filled with the Spirit? This is a separate thing. This is theology, and he's suggesting that you can make C.S. Lewis, Philip Yancey, John Stott, they're all devotional kind of authors. Reducing her to that scuttles, I'm not sure what FB18 is, but that tears down
Fundamental Belief 18.
Oh, of course, yeah. Thanks. And that tears down a main identifying mark of the remnant church of Bible prophecy, and it makes it an utter mess. Alexander is trying to build up something that needs to first be deconstructed. Now, what you said earlier, Alexander, is that, yeah, you'd actually would like to see some of these things jettisoned. Of these earlier things.
No problem.
But by doing so, and perhaps the word isn't unravel, but by doing so, is the core, unique, identifying theological feature of Adventism then scuttled?
Well, yeah, I think, spectrum. And me personally, I mean, I was religion major at Andrews University undergrad, and went to my Ellen White professor and said, look, the things you're telling the class are not the whole truth about Ellen White, because I did my own reading. And, he said, well, I can't go into all of that, or blah, blah, blah. It'll hurt their faith and all this stuff. And I just felt like that was being dishonest as a professor. I understand you got to work within the system and those sort of things. But believe me, I have no one. I have, I read Prophetess of Health, I don't know, when I was 19 years old in one night, and was really, really appreciative of the way that Ron Numbers really used good historiography to critique Ellen White. So, yes, I actually think that we need to, people were used to saying Ellen White had the gift of prophecy, and we have this distinguishing mark, and if we lose that, then we cease to be Adventist. And the thing is, no, there's lots of things that will remain Adventist. In fact, if we are predicating it on things that are historically false, epistemologically false, it's actually a shaky foundation. And it's kind of like going to, maybe like I haven't thought this all the way through, but it's like, taking your kid to a youth, soccer team, or taking your kid to sing in a choir, for the first time. And you're like, this kid, my kid is and you walk in and you say, my kid is the best kid here, better than all your kids. We know this. I have doctrinal facts, blah, blah, blah. My kid's better than everyone here at soccer. Have they played yet? No. So saying whatever we want to say about Ellen White, she's a prophet. We have the truth. We're the remnant. is a conversation stopper. And if you walk to the American Academy of Religion or the Academy of Religion in any continent on earth and start by saying those sort of things, people think you're nuts and you're not a good conversation partner. And we have to recognize that whatever we say about ourselves to make ourselves happy is actually undermining our effectiveness in spreading the gospel. And so I understand those can be very important truths for people. And I think there's healthy ways to talk about Ellen White and all these other important doctrines that we have. I think doctrine matters, but I do think that we have to recognize that we live in a real world, and walking out there and saying Ellen White is inspired by God and she's a prophet, and then we have pretty good evidence that there's some really complicated things going on with her writing. People are gonna really get turned off, and so
and later on when they find out, they'll feel duped.
Yes, exactly.
So I think what perhaps is the fundamental difference between you and I is that perhaps you and I both would have agreed, and 10 years ago, if I'd met you then and we had the current social media kind of platform, and I was still an Adventist, I would have been saying, mate, can I write some articles? Can I be involved in Spectrum some way?
And I would have said, please do.
Please do. Yeah, thank you. And I would have shared with you an idea that some fundamental things should be jettisoned. But the difference is, by doing so, would you agree that Adventism would also have to let go of this idea that it has a unique doctrinal message? Because I'm guessing that one of the main ones we would have to jettison is to do with the investigative judgment, the sanctuary doctrine, in the sense that Ellen White said the 2,300 days was accurate, etc. I might be wrong, but let's say we have to jettison some things. My core difference is that by jettisoning those things, you are no longer making the Adventist traditional message unique. And so what I used to do is I wouldn't tell people that sort of stuff, and I would hope to God that they never stumbled across it. What Danny has shared here, and she reminded us too, it's Chris Martin of Coldplay.
Yeah, good.
She mentions here, sharing that sense of connectedness instead is really awesome. It's a fantastic ministry goal. But the problem is that it is just changing the sales funnel. It's the end result that needs to change. And the difference, I think, between you and I is that I believe that end result can never change. And so all you're going to do is create a nice ministry, connectedness, big tent feeling that you're always going to be careful at the back end going, hey, don't go down that path, don't go over here. And the difference between you and me is that I think you have a good sense of, no, I think we can navigate that and change it. Whereas I came to the conclusion that we couldn't. And so I left. But I think at the heart of the potential that we see there is the same. But I think, what are your thoughts on jettisoning some of those core doctrines and noting that they will definitely change the core distinctive message of Adventism and take it away? It'll just become another Protestant movement. Is that okay with you?
No, I don't want it to just be another Protestant thing. But it is kind of partly a Protestant thing. In fact, I was just doing a thing about I did a presentation for a Loma Linda Sabbath school about that kind of idea. In fact, Sola Scriptura is basically a slogan used by Luther and Calvin, but it's not an actually functional epistemology or hermeneutical tool, because you're always mixing things when you're constructing a religion beyond just pure textual, whatever you think you're combining. I think maybe we need to think about truth here. So in that way, I mean, what we've said is kind of the idea is Adventism is the most true thing when we're talking to people. Look it up, and the Sabbath has been a really helpful way of making that argument, because you kind of go to a Christian and say, oh, you believe the Bible? Interesting. Well, you're going to church on Sunday. Fascinating. Did you know that? And then you pull out these texts and you recognize that, there's a history of what we think of as Sabbath keeping, and you can make some arguments from scripture on that. And, I'm not saying that Sunday keepers are wrong at all. In fact, I'm just saying that there's some hermeneutical tools that we benefit from in making a kind of we're more true than everyone else thing, but we're not. And we need to recognize we're not. We're on the same level of playing field, which is we've all constructed things out of a mix of some great ideas and some pretty destructive ideas and some really shaky ideas. And so we're kind of in this mix by kind of rejecting just another Protestant thing is, I would even say, just another thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that could be very scary to a lot of people here, when we say, so there's some people obviously in the comments who are going to feel like, where are we going here? But I'm just saying we have to do this, there's a kind of ego gratification. And also, if we really trust God, then we can trust God with ambiguity, which is, I think, profound faith. And if we're doing that, then we have to recognize, and I'll give you this example. I was at an event for the dedication of an Adventist Health. It's a corporation on the West Coast, smaller than Advent Health. And they're probably about 95% of the employees are not Adventist. But this healthcare institution is very important in the community, and I was there quite a bit, and I saw that these, it was kind of the largest employer, and it was seen as very helpful and beneficial, and if it was gone, it would leave this very poor agricultural-based community with very limited opportunities for health and jobs and hope, honestly. And so at this dedication, it was really interesting because people said, I'm Adventist. Now, they're not Adventist in that they've been baptized or have those beliefs figured out, but they felt like they were part of the Adventist witness in that community as employees or board members of Adventist Health. Now, that's a bit of a little word play, but to me, that's really what we're thinking about. If we're, it's not like, let's think about how many Adventists here listening have presented all 28 beliefs to how many people, like gone through a whole Bible study. Like, we talk about how important these beliefs are, but how much of that, 10, 5 in an entire lifetime, really, we're not really communicating fundamental beliefs, especially something like Ellen White. We're really communicating little moments and pieces of life and values. And so I really want us to maybe think a little bit about that. At the GC session, did we have like a lot of stuff about doctrine? No. Beliefs? No. Even Ellen White? No. We had a lot of like moments of singing together and debate over this and conversation over that. And mostly it was like great to see people that you hadn't seen in a while, or get to know someone from another part of the world that you felt connected to because you had this cultural, and by that I mean web of meaning, as Clifford Geertz describes culture. So that's what I really want us to think about. Whatever we're talking about with beliefs and behaviors and belonging, we're really talking about a cultural connection that we can, provide. And I think that we want to maybe put this in the same plane as like, is America like the greatest country in the world? is Australia the greatest country in the world? Of course, our hearts beat with pride every once in a while when the World Cup rolls around. My mom was born in Australia, so I do root for the Socceroos. I like their colors as well. But it's really a thing that we need to be honest about. And I think with Spectrum, the history here, the 55-year history, is trying to kind of when you actually understand how the beliefs are constructed, there's not enough there to survive on, if we're really honest. And yet that doesn't mean that you can't survive. Just like if you look at it, there's not enough to survive to say, hey, the Roman Empire, really great place. Like, they had a lot of things that worked really well until they didn't. The British Empire had a lot of things that worked until they didn't. America has a lot of things that worked, and we'll see what happens down the road. So all these things that we think of, families, whatever people say at the wedding, there's a lot of things that actually happen later that show you that weren't the words that were spoken, or the blessing of God, or the prayers of the parents, or whatever. It's these other things that I want to be real about in Adventism, like they are in every other thing. And it's really the mix of all these meanings together. And we need to kind of think broader than just some beliefs, which is why I appreciate you talking about culture, web of meaning.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see that subset grow within Adventism. Now, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I want to come back and talk about Mary Kay, and Moto Sapien has asked a question somewhere back there about Ted Wilson's response to all of that as well. So we're going to come back in 5 minutes and talk about some more juicy topics that occurred. I think we've set the scene now. It's only taken us
all right, Mary Kay, that was fun. I'll even show some pictures here.
Oh, good. Bring them up. We're talking to Alexander Carpenter of Spectrum Magazine. We will be back in 5 minutes.
You love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, 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 I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Well, here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, then all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, whoa, I will never be the same, will never be the same ever again. You love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, 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 I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, then all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, 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 I will never be the same, will never be the same ever again.
And we are back. I'm chatting with Alexander Carpenter, Editor-in-Chief and Executive Director of Spectrum magazine. And I'd love if you guys would go and check out the Spectrum website. It's available on spectrummagazine.org. And a couple of comments while we were having a break there. Motor Sapien has reposted that question for us, which is great. Brian F. writes, progressive truth in Adventism has not progressed. Unfortunately, that might be true. It was interesting yesterday in my conversation with Andrea McMahon, we talked about Adventist teaching of the scapegoat being Satan. And one of the interesting things that came up in the conversation is that the scapegoat was always an innocent animal in this case. And so to make Satan the scapegoat, you'd have to suggest that he was innocent and then was placed with all the sins. So they're the kind of doctrines that I guess we're talking about that impede the progress of Adventism being seen as a viable gospel movement. And if there comes a time when I'm wrong and Alexander is right, and some of these laborious unbiblical doctrines are jettisoned, what a powerful cultural movement Adventism could be. Okay, before we get into Mary Kay, which I'm really looking forward to, I'm a huge fan of hers, and I'll get you to perhaps give a little bit of a background for people who don't know her so much. Alexander, were you able to see or get a read on Ted Wilson's reaction to the vote? Was he happy to be out of the seat, or was he devastated?
No, I know previous, because we had to, we do, it's a real world of journalism that we operate in. And there was some stories a few weeks before the GC session or rumors that he wanted to retire. And we chased those down very carefully and figured out that they were coming from a source that was not reliable. And in fact, he very much planned on being GC president. He had made plans with a particular leader that told me about them. When I'm elected again, we need to be doing this and that and that. So he very much wanted to be. We did have reporting.
So, sorry, you're saying that that is confirmed Ted was thinking that, or you're saying this other unreliable source was saying
yes,
that?
So it was unreliable. It was an unreliable source, although it was hot news, hot gossip for a week there before the GC session, that people were saying, no, there was rumors that he planned to retire, blah, blah, blah. Those were not true. He absolutely planned to be GC president for another 5 years or more. I am not kidding when I say this. He believed that he would be GC president when Jesus returned.
Right.
So people really need to understand that. That's there has not been a GC president who voluntarily left since 1958 or something like that. R.R. Figure, something like.
You're right. Yes. It was sad that he did leave. Figure.
Yeah. So yes, people really need to understand that, that kind of whatever, I don't understand it. But that kind of thing is very intoxicating. And on that note, really quickly, the article that we just put up is, I think, interesting because it is a union communication director who worked with the associate communication director to do succession planning, and they switched roles, not at the end of a term, but in the middle here, so that the associate became the director and the director became the associate, because they had mentored that, there was a mentoring process from the director to the associate, and the director gave up their kind of corner office and gave it to the associate to become the new director. And this was very intentional with some strengths, Gallup Strengths Finder kind of professional mentoring going on. And I just think that we need to help our leaders out and realize that clinging on to power, as great as they are, there's
15
other people
years
who can
is a little bit long. So what you're saying is that you can confirm that his intentions were to keep going, and that he did think he would be there till when the Lord returned as leader.
Yes, he did. His buddy Mark Finley absolutely was advocating for him to continue. The president of ASI endorsed him twice at spring meeting, and he in no way said, no, please don't. He absolutely planned on being, and I had two people independent of each other say they saw him in tears when he was told. Now, he has disputed that publicly, and so we've recognized that, and I'd love to see video. I'd love to have a few more people come and discuss that.
The sources that told you, were they reliable?
Yes,
were they eyewitnesses?
Yes, they were both eyewitnesses. And they're both in their professional roles give them additional credibility, and the fact that they've told me other things that were very true about things at that level. So now, I could see, we said sobbing, maybe a few tears were shed. We can debate that. Maybe Nancy was sobbing and he was comforting her. Maybe he was sobbing because she was, I am open to more reporting on this important thing. But what it really is we got into a bit of a discussion about, was the GC president crying or not? And
you guys did an article on that, did you?
Well, it was just mentioned in an article about
mentioned in an article. Yeah. Okay. Right.
And we put in a note right away when he did some interviews with Adventist Review and ANN, both saying, I wasn't sobbing, but he hadn't read what we wrote. So what he actually said that he didn't do was not the exact thing that we said. So, he didn't say, no, I never shed a tear or anything like that. So, yes, I think he was hurt. I think that he expected to have this. I think he thought God wanted him to. So I think that there's both a theological and a, kind of ecclesiological fracture that happened for his belief system, because I think he thought he had the votes, and I think he thought he had God's vote. So, he's probably got some processing to do there. Hopefully, there's some people that will help him, and I wouldn't want him to, suffer. I want him to have a healthy retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. Does he have any, it'd have to be a son, any sons that look like they're into the leadership roles?
But he has two son-in-laws who are climbing the ladder, one in Michigan, which is tainted now a bit, and then in Georgia Cumberland Conference. So we'll see what happens there.
Right. I'll just read one more from Danny, and then we'll get on to Mary Kay. Just two quick ones. We've got Rick has said Adventism also needs to be honest about their membership stats and how many members actually attend and participate. Since COVID, people have been staying home because every church services. It's David Trim, isn't it?
Yeah.
Were you at his presentation, and what because he talks a fair bit about that, quite honestly and openly, his thoughts on
yes, he does,
etc. What did he reveal?
Sort of a voice, a bureaucratic voice crying in the wilderness there a bit. It's very important to recognize that he always says these are the numbers that were reported.
Yeah.
I will also say, this is fun. I like your audience here because they really pay attention to these sort of things. There's no doubt that there's membership bloat in the church. And the church has tried to institute some audits on membership. And the place where that has maybe happened very effectively was actually by Ayrton Kohler in the South American division. They did a pretty, respected audit of their membership there. That doesn't mean that there's, problems. There are. We've done some of the reporting about that, but they took that kind of problem seriously and executed that. And David Trim reports up through to Ayrton Colt in the past, because Secretariat handles the vertical down to stats and archives that
Right.
David did. So there's that. East Central Africa Division has not done an audit. The South Asia Division is on a very complicated, long road to that. So it's not like people in the church leadership are blind to this. I never heard Ted Wilson really champion auditing and that kind of thing, which probably made him popular with some of those leaders in some parts of the world. It'll be interesting to see what happens there in PNG with the PNG for Christ massive numbers.
Yeah. And what's funny there is that all my life, every 10 years, there's a big PNG mass baptism, and it never ends well, but they keep doing it.
Yeah. So, I think, but let me give you this. When we just had this new Pope elected for the Roman Catholic Church, the New York Times, the papers around the world say 1.6 billion Catholics. Are all those Catholics showing up at church? Not.
No.
80% probably are not, right?
Yeah.
But there's an identity, there's a cultural connection, whatever that is. So I do think absolutely for our own, GC membership gives power and voting at different sessions, that sort of thing. We got hurt on women's ordination, probably because there were some fake members around the world. But America has, NAD. I'm not putting my own area up on a pedestal in this at all. But it's, what does it mean to be an adherent? There's actually some interesting, social science about the way that people feel connected to religious communities, and people who never think about Adventism put down, Adventist when they're asked on surveys, because, that's the thing that they connect with most when they think about faith, perhaps. And it doesn't mean that they believe everything, show up, give money. So, I want us to be both recognizing the need for precision and audits, but also the fact is that faith is not like a country club.
No. And I think, too, the former Adventists that are watching, not that anyone has to take my advice and most don't, you guys bolster that figure by not taking your name off the roll. And I know, anecdotally speaking, from my experience over the last 5 years, and being a former myself, I reckon about 80% of formers don't take their name off the roll. And I think that would help create a more accurate number as well, that then you could work within the parameters that you're speaking of, that it's a group of people that may or may not go to church, but they still have a cultural identity to it.
Yeah, it would be interesting to actually have Peter, you could do this. You could create a really, like, the engaged, I don't know how you prefer to be called, a former Adventist, ex-Adventist, whatever the term is, but it would be interesting to get, could you have a list of 10,000 who are sort of engaged in this sort of, there's people who just never pay attention again, but there's people who do, and that kind of engaged ex-Adventist is, we could call them front sliders, because they're really leaning into.
They're looking over the fence. What's going on over there?
They didn't back out. They're still.
We could do a survey and say, you guys that are looking in over the fence, have you taken your name off the roll or not?
I had a friend who's very, I really respect her. She quit being an Adventist and saw that the process is actually, you contact your local church. So she did that, and the process on the local church is for the pastor to basically do an exit interview, at least in this conference that she was a part of. So she both for her and for this pastor, who wasn't the pastor that she grew up with, had this very awkward thing where he had to ask her a series of questions about why she was leaving. So I don't know if that's around the world. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of the process that
Okay.
people
So you
can
did.
be involved in. I didn't do
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
My advice is people, if they are going to leave, just contact your local conference. They will try and arrange to meet with you and potentially change your mind, but and some will even vote that no, you can't take your name off. So you've got to say clearly, I've made the decision already. I'm leaving. Please let me know at the next board meeting that you have actioned my request. Just as simple as that. Now, here's a good question for you. Dale hasn't been an Adventist for a long time. So he's just said, Pete, could you refresh my memory on what Spectrum magazine is? You're the best one to answer that.
So it was started in 1969 by a group of Adventists who were starting to ask questions. Some of them left the church. So it's a nice mix of the kind of people that we have here. Me, member of the church, Peter, not. But I consider him part of the Spectrum community, and I like being part of the SDAQ&A community here. So I think there's some nice overlap. Spectrum, the best way of describing it is it kind of combines academia and Adventism. So it was a journal where people could publish their findings on things that raise question around Adventist ideas about the age of the earth. Very famously did a lot of articles that raised questions about, used geology to raise questions around the simple ideas that people were using to support Adventist ideas around origins. And then Ellen White, we were the people who really criticized the propaganda around Ellen White's gift and the mythology. And but we also are those kind of, so that kind of, and that is serious. It's not opinion writing. This is, 40, 50, 100 footnotes. These are really widely respected scholars, both in Adventism and out of Adventism, who have really laid the groundwork, the intellectual foundation for a healthy critique of a wide range of Adventist ideas. Many of those people are still members of the Adventist Church. Many of those people are not. And so that's kind of that kind of history. We've published a journal, a print journal, every quarter for 55 years. So there's people who invest a lot of resources into what Spectrum is. About 25 years ago, they then launched a website, and that's spectrummagazine.org. Since then, that has grown. So now we really kind of have become a mix of three things: that kind of academic thing, and then we added in, really, and this is a good place actually to talk about when I finish this, about Mary Kay. One of the big things in the early 70s was we had a piece of long form journalism by Tom Dibdall, who was trained as a pastor, got into journalism, went to Columbia, the best journalism school in the US, for that, and wrote a kind of the original piece on what was going on with Mary Kay's lawsuit against the Pacific Press owned by the denomination. And so we do the journalism, we do the academia, of course, then we have art and creative expression. From the beginning, Spectrum has supported kind of non-traditional ways of connecting with the divine. So abstract art in the very first issues of the journal, photography, always a proponent of, kind of edgy, cutting edge things in Adventism, opening spaces for that. Maybe sometimes a little stuffy, kind of more scholarly, but we've tried to be real and recognize that, drums are a part of world culture as well. And so Advent, we appreciate praise music, and we really think about the ways that people connect to the divine in terms of their senses. And so the website has really taken off. And so we have about 100,000 people reading that website every month. During the GC session, that kind of quadrupled with lots and lots of views. And now we've really grown. Now we're like, you could kind of see it as like the third or fourth generation, in part because social issues are such a way that people measure their connectedness to things. So women's ordination, thinking about our relationship to the earth, and obviously questions about queerness and where that fits into the Adventist community, what role that has in institutions. So that's really opened up kind of this next generation on social media. So when we do things about, LGBTQ issues and Adventism, the Instagram, the TikTok crowd really engages, and our 20 and 30-year-olds are really doing a great job trying to have good discussions about what identity means in new ways. So that kind of it's basically a board, a nonprofit that is operated, that I have been a member of the board, and now I report to them. I really believe in putting your money where your mouth is. So I donate to the organization. I did before, I do now, and lots of other people do. And yeah, that's the magic.
Yeah.
It's really people who like each other.
Yeah.
And have for 55 years.
Yeah. It's a wonderful community. The forum meetings are officially a Spectrum.
Yeah.
And
there's one in Sydney.
One in Sydney, very popular still. Dale just adds, is Spectrum magazine a part of the SDA?
No. From the beginning, it was independent.
Yeah.
That's really been the thing, is we've kept that. Now, lots of people who are on the board work for Adventist entities, but we remain completely editorially independent. We can say whatever we want to say. I can publish whatever I want to publish.
Yes.
We do that. We do not mindlessly put things up there just because it's PR or just because it's inspirational. We really respect the mind of our readers, and we just finished a strategic planning process. Sorry, Peter, I just wanted to say we have modified our mission statement, and part of that is to say that we, for our readers, we transform information into insight. And that's important, that I've really tried to train my staff. And so we don't just put something up there. We try to give you facts. We try to connect it to sources. We try to make sure that you can trust what you're reading, but also it's just going to give you that extra bite when you read or hear somebody who like adds a couple of details and rounds out a nice piece of writing. You come away with it with like a good sense of it, and not just there's lots of things out there that people can just report on. We try to really respect our readers and give them, they're going to take 3 minutes to read an article. I don't want to waste their time. And so that's
you want it to be well written as well. Yeah. There has always been an obvious skill level by the artists and creatives involved with Spectrum, even down to the design of the covers, and everything has really stood out. So the guys that started it, the people that started it, they had a real eye for art.
Mm-hmm.
and well expressed written material.
Yep.
Motor Sapien asks, is there a West Coast Spectrum chapter?
There is there's like a couple. One is at PUC. It's called the Choir Room Sabbath School, but it functions as a Spectrum chapter. There's a church up in Washington, Green Lake Church, that functions that way, and they have a special series once or twice a year where they bring in a scholar to do a kind of 3-part presentation on an interesting topic. And then the Sabbath seminar, Sabbath school at Loma Linda University functions kind of like we advertise those, and several of those are on Zoom, so you can participate in probably 4 different forum type discussions and presentations every Sabbath. Plus, the Asheville Forum does something every month, and then there's one in Alaska, which is the Alaska Adventist Forum, and then there's a new one in Northern New England conference called the New England Forum that is started by Skip Bell, who used to be at the seminary. So yeah,
right. And if people, a few people now are requesting to know more information about that. So if you go to spectrummagazine.org, I'm sure you'll find listings of where the various chapters and meeting places are.
It's in our events page, which we update each week.
Mm.
And if you sign up for our newsletter, which you can do at the top of the homepage, we send those to you every Friday morning. We also pay attention to the E61 in Australia.
The Avondale one, you mean?
Yeah, that one.
I
something.
always forget. 14, 23, 13. Someone watching will tell me. As the Avondale and Sydney chapter work closely together. I'm calling them chapters, but they've been very, very involved since before Glacier View and particularly post Glacier View.
E14 Sabbath School.
Yeah. E14, that's it. Yeah. Yes. Fred Simmons writes that your reputation preceded you and that they couldn't force you out of the GC convention, and your steering of the spectrum or ship of spectrum can make some big waves. Did you find pushback? I know that Ted Wilson definitely was against the independent ministries such as yourself. Ayrton, I heard him talking about how he wants to support people having a voice, but he also did throw in that he is not so keen on those who are criticizing the church. He wants to see a lot more positive stuff said, but I think it's healthy for any movement to welcome criticism, not even just movements, people as individuals. We should welcome criticism. So did you get some pushback?
I would probably say to us, it was what I heard him say. It was in terms of academic freedom, which he and excellence, which he wants in terms of the Adventist University. He started by saying he believes in excellence, and excellence. This is not a quote, but he didn't say biblical excellence. He said excellence, which means he doesn't want to be embarrassed by Adventist universities becoming Bible colleges. They should be as the world sees excellence, which is, you can be a scientist and do research and people respect it, kind of thing. So, and I'll say that when he said that he wanted faculty who not were positive, but were constructive. So it's not just happy-go-lucky PR. I think he just wants, like many leaders, they want people who are not tearing down.
Right.
So that's fine. I'm not interested in just tearing down for the sake of it, or not just, but we do want to, we will critique. We have for 55 years. Yeah. And I think Mary Kay's a good example of that. By the way, she's not an Adventist anymore.
No. She would have left quite a while ago. Let's chat about Mary Kay. This is how I first got to know Mary Kay.
She still gets royalties from that.
Really? I was going to ask that. When I was a young boy, this came out, and for some reason, everyone decided to turn it into a play. So you'd have church groups, and at college here they did it. Well, Avondale University now. and it was scary stuff. It was real Adventism. It was endorsed and promoted by the Adventist Church at its official levels. So does she's getting the royalties, and good on her. It's very well written. It's a page turner. It's a little book. If you want a nice Sabbath afternoon scare the pants off your session, this is the one. That's the original cover there. There's another book released in the States called Sunlight or something. The Sun or something, which is very similar, and people get them confused, but it's a different author and different work. Anyway, does she? Yeah, tell us a bit about her thoughts on that. Then there's the other book, Betrayed, that she wrote. Tell us a bit about that. But tell us who is Mary Kay?
Let me do that. Can I share a screen and show some pictures?
Yes, you'll just need to press that button or screen share down the bottom in one of those little circles, and then I have to just accept at this end.
Okay. All right. Is not allowed. Okay. I think let me do it again here with you. Allow to share window.
And Moto Sapien is just saying also that he is often in SAC. Is that your part of the world? It'd be great to catch up for lunch one day, he said, next time.
Oh, yeah, great. Please do. You can reach me at alexander@spectrummagazine.org.
And Schlei's watching. Come on the show next week, Schley. Let me know. It'd be good to have you on. It's not coming up still. If you press H, that might.
All right, let me... doing the share of the window.
Oh, there we go. Now I'll just bring it on this end.
Okay.
There we go.
And then that's
the window. So you've got to go where it says share. You got to choose window instead of Chrome tab or entire screen. You might have clicked. So it'll give you a choice at the top when you
share window.
Share. Yeah, click the window button and then choose the window you want to share.
Oh, okay. Is that now share this window? I see. Okay.
Oh, Matthew Lucio is watching.
And good. I've got
Project Sunlight.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah. What's the background on the Project Sunlight there, Matthew? Matthew J. Lucio. Haven't had you on the show in ages.
Here, I have a picture of him at the Mary Kay event. Let me switch to, I think it's the other set of pictures here.
He's another awesome contributor to the...
Yeah, everyone should check out his Adventist History podcast. It's good Adventist. It's good, well-researched Adventist history presented very engagingly.
Yes, and with lots of humor.
Yeah.
So there you are on the screen now.
Let's see. Can you see the other thing, other pictures I've got going?
What can you see? It's just got a picture of people laughing around a table. And
okay.
A screen.
Well, we'll do that. I'll do this one and then I'll do the other.
It's gone blank altogether now. And while we're just waiting, Matthew, let us know who wrote Project Sunlight. Is it similar to now? We just lost the screen there. Not sure what happened.
Can you see me?
Can see you.
Okay. Let me do this again. And then I have to pick here. Better if if I do this in a separate thing. I'll do this one here. See if this works.
Schley, why don't you answer me? Come on the show next week, Schley. Tell me in the comments if that's a goer. Next. All
right. Let me just go through these. We won't have to.
Oh, here we go.
I can just do this. So can you see the...
So we've just got a blank screen on yours.
Okay, so I need to do this one more time, I think, and then we'll be back to... Okay, here I am. Now I'm going to do the share screen. Then I will pick this thing to share, and we should be good again.
And there we go.
Okay, great. So this is Mary Kay, and this is Dale Galusha, who is the president of Pacific Press.
Wow.
And just so folks know, in the early 70s, Mary Kay blasted onto the scene by writing that little book pamphlet called Now that Peter was holding up, and really became a minor celebrity among Adventists in the late 60s, because she wrote this sort of engagingly contemporary, rip-roaring, terrifying last events kind of narrative. But it was not.
How old was she when she wrote it?
I believe she did that.
It was like in 16, 17 or something, quite young.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, for a assignment in school.
Yeah.
So she was she was an editorial assistant, and she had, at Pacific Press in her early 20s, she was married, and her husband decided to go to grad school. So that meant that he would no longer be bringing in as much money. And what really makes this important, and Mary Kay emphasized this, I'll scroll up here. You can see I've had a billboard made on the road where people are coming in from the airport to.
No way.
Yeah, so you can see Mary Kay in St. Louis. She made churches obey the law, hosted by Spectrum magazine.
How much did that cost?
It was a really good deal. I had donors who supported it, and I got it for 3 weeks, and that was like basically $700 to have it up for 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I had 4 of these done. So
it's so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. So you can see she's really great, great sense of humor. And like many people who have left Adventism, she really did not want, because she didn't want people to ask this, because she didn't want their pity or that kind of thing that Adventists can sometimes do, where they're like, oh, well, now we won't listen to what you're saying. We just care about your soul or something like that, your membership to the church. And it's just really patronizing. So I really liked that about her. So I helped to kind of protect. I kind of made it very clear. She's on her own spiritual journey. We support that. Let's have a conversation about what we want to have a conversation about, and not get into those kind of things. So it worked out well. Had a very mature audience. So so just fun. Whoops, I don't need to go through that way. Maybe I'll go through it this way. So this was just stuff with her a little bit. This was one of the people, professor of journalism at Southern Adventist University, Alva James Johnson, who's done investigations into 3ABN for us. So check those out on our website. Award-winning looks at how they have treated a elderly gentleman who mistakenly donated about 100 acres in the Bahamas to 3ABN. And he didn't realize what he was doing because he's blind, and 3ABN took advantage of him, allegedly. Whoa. And then he and his daughter tried to claw back that, because he thought he had always dreamed, his father had always dreamed that on this generational land on the Bahamas, they would have some sort of like spiritual building. So he thought he was giving basically a church or a chapel, but instead he signed over all this land that's worth millions of dollars. And 3ABN has fought them. So we did 2 investigations, one of which was published in the Miami Herald along with on Spectrum, which we won an award for.
Wow.
So we're trying to make a difference there.
So what's happening with that, just as an aside? It's
ongoing. It's actually in the Bahamian legal system now, and we're keeping track of that because that's kind of where the law that applies here, not U.S. law, but Bahamian law is operating. And it gets into actually some deeper issues there, kind of post-colonial who owns the land, how have families with an island culture, where, you're not, you don't want fences, you want to walk around, and
Yeah.
people are used to that. And it's not this sort of regimented thing like people are sometimes used to in the suburbs. So yeah, it's just an interesting kind of complicated issue that we're trying to keep an eye on and try to keep
Yeah.
these independent ministries honest.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another example of the great thing that Spectrum does. It's keeping people accountable and honest. Yeah.
Yeah, trying.
That's incredible.
Okay, so I would like to maybe show you one other series of photos from the event. We had some church leaders show up to be supportive of what we were doing. So let me undo this screen share. Can I share a tab? If I open up a tab, is that possible when I
Yeah, I
do
think
this?
it'll come up. You'll have to potentially share the entire screen, but no, you can. No, you can. Yes, just go to Chrome tab. The three selections: Chrome tab, window, and entire screen. Just click Chrome tab, and then you can just click on the tab you want to open. So
Nice. Okay,
that,
so I can go here.
yeah. Let me.
Wait.
I've
Wait,
just
do you
got to accept at this end. So
you see?
can't see anything.
Oh, wait, I think I probably need to select one other thing here. Stop screen sharing. Sorry. Now I'm going to do it one more time. Share window. So the whole window will be shared. And then I do the large one and hit window.
Yeah, there's a few ways you can do that.
All right, I will. Here, let me do this. I'll share this screen. Okay, now maybe I can do it. Now, if I go here, can you see what I have up?
So I can see a guy with cowboy hat. Lots of
Yeah,
images.
okay, great. That's one of our interns, Hayden. Okay, great. So here's kind of the event, just so you have it. We did a nice Q&A with Mary Kay. And just so folks understand, so at Pacific Press, she realized that she needed to go talk to her boss because she was the only woman with a direct male counterpart. So most of the men there had like secretaries in the 70s, but she actually was an editorial assistant, and there was another guy who was an editorial assistant. So she went to him, and he very generously shared how much he was getting paid, which was about 40% more than Mary Kay was getting paid. So she went to her boss, said, my husband is going back to grad school. Can you bump me up to what the guy doing the exact same work is getting paid? And they said, well, we can't. And she said, why? And they said, because he's getting paid head of household pay. And she said, well, I'm kind of the head of the household in terms of bringing in the bacon because my husband's going back to grad school. And they said, you can't be a head of household because you're a woman. And so then she thought, and I think this is the kind of really interesting thing. She thought, and then she got involved with another woman there, Lorna Tobler, who contributed a essay to the book that we just released, Betrayal. And they thought, okay, let's bring together quotes from Ellen White about equality. Let's look at church statements about equality. Let's look at things about how we treat each other. On and on and on. And finally, and this was a quote that she said, she realized that that all those arguments were not going to change their mind. And she said, she and Lorna have this quote where they said it felt like the men had cement for brains. And that included Neil Wilson, who came out and walked around with her and spent time with her for a day in her home. So anyway, what she ended up doing is suing Pacific Press for discrimination. And this became an ongoing court case that was finally taken up by the U.S. government, the Equal Opportunity EEOC. I'm trying to remember what it stands for, and I can't right now off the top of my head. Anyway, finally, in the early 80s, that court case went through appeals process, and Mary Kay versus Pacific Press was won, and $600,000 at the time, quite a bit of money, pot of money was given by Pacific Press to not only Mary Kay and Lorna Tobler, but a bunch of other women who had signed on to the case. And so actually I've heard from some of those women who benefited. In fact, one of the women donated $500 to the Billboard Project because that benefited a lot of Adventist couples. One woman said this allowed her husband to go to grad school because they got this chunk of money. Another woman said that they were able to put down down payment for their first home in the early 80s as a result of this. So it really had a huge impact. And John Ray, the attorney for the EEOC, contributed a really great essay on the impact on American law. Her case is cited in 500 instances of case law changing the way that the Mormon Church discriminated against women, Catholic school systems discriminated against women, on and on, this ripple effect. And so I think you could call her perhaps the most influential person to come out of Adventism in terms of affecting a government and affecting a culture. And so we really celebrated her. And here you can see Dale Galusha. I had him come up. He's a real sweetheart, very nice, thoughtful
and he's
guy.
the guy that's the Pacific Press.
Yeah, so he is the president of Pacific Press.
Yeah.
He did a nice moment of thanking her for suing Pacific Press, and he loves her. And they actually have had a friendly relationship over the years. So this is not the first time they've spent time together, but we did a nice moment where they embraced, and he thanked her, and she talked about what a nice guy he is. And it was really a nice kind of healing moment for everyone.
For some reason, because I know when Walter Ray, he settled out of court with his book Pirates of Privilege. They were going to take away my memory, if it serves me, his sustentation, like his superannuation kind of money, if he published that book. So he settled out of court and didn't publish. I always thought that Mary Kay settled out of court too,
Yes. It's important.
So that was a settlement fee, right? Oh, good.
Yeah, she settled early, but that case, Mary Kay versus Pacific Press, was continued by Lorna Tobler, her colleague, and so she had settled early, but it continued on. And so what she started, it's a little complicated in there, which is all in the book for sale on the Spectrum website for $20.
Now I'm just seeing if I can share a screen at the same time as you.
I want to point out the guy in the blue shirt here is Matthew Lucio.
Just
so folks know, the Adventist History Podcast.
I'll come back to that. I've pressed the wrong button, but I'll come back to us showing him. Oh, no, you can still see him there, in the small picture. But just a quick plug for Betrayal. So that's the book she wrote, and you guys have published it, reprinted it, put it out there for her. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a 40-year anniversary of this event, and so we did a 40-year anniversary led by Bonnie Dwyer, former editor of Spectrum, who did the introduction, and then we included some supplemental essays, including a really great thing by Laura Wibberding, who's a professor at Pacific Union College, kind of showing the church's side based on some research by a guy named George Colvin, who's also no longer Adventist, but really did a great job showing what was happening at the time. And I'm hoping to have, I will have a panel discussion of this at the Association of Seventh-day Adventist Historians in September. So we'll bring together some of these people. Also on that picture with Matthew, we have...
Let's open that one in a sec. Hang on a second.
Oh, yeah.
And those who want to buy that book, just go to spectrummagazine.org. So is it available as a digital read or only a hard, soft paperback?
It's a soft cover, but yes, a print edition only right now. We'll do an audio book that's in production.
Oh, good. I love audio books. That's my main thing.
Yeah, and then I need to, now that I have some time after GC session, we'll try to figure out what to do with something that we could work on an e-reader.
And there's Matthew in the blue shirt.
There's Matthew. The women in front of him are the leaders of the Association of Adventist Women. And then behind them is Keoshan On and his wife, and he is the executive secretary of the North American Division. So we had him there, and also the treasurer of the North American Division reached out, and she just got 3 books, Mary Kay books. Judy, blanking on her last name, but anyway, yes, we had some great folks who were a part of this really fun event.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. I'll take that one off the screen.
All right, I can take a. Let me go back here.
What's the guy's name again? He's the editor of Pacific Press. Did you say?
President.
Did he share some thoughts on the whole GC, the votes, the reclaiming book? What are his thoughts on that? Because that's pretty.
I don't want to speak for him. I'll just say that I think things are in motion that will make that could make that book widely available. There's a lot that have already. It's already been. There's lots of copies that have already been printed. So there just needs to be a little bit of a process in place so that some people feel like it's safe to share. But I'm working on getting some people together to put something up about it that I think will help support that effort.
Oh, good.
Sort of the, kind of wise, well-respected leaders who think this book is exactly what the church needs to read. And
particularly, and released again on Pacific Press, or you think on
yes, no, it will. Yes, it's already been printed. It just needs the wave of the magisterium.
Because my understanding is that the wider state can't control whether they sell it or not, but they took it under advisement not to because of pressure from the wider state. I mean, that's not just speculative. That's what has been said by both sides. Yeah. It was kind of a kabuki dance, I think. Like if you did this, there would be a lot more. So they kind of pulled back, waited for some things to happen, and now there's a leadership change. There's also some efforts to talk to the white estate and help them kind of understand, the potential benefits of this book, and there's a process in place, I think, with the North American Division, which is the owner of Pacific Press. So that process is in place, or if something happens there, then these books that are already published by Pacific Press will then be available again. Right, okay.
So it will go back to this being a denominationally endorsed, essentially, book that provides a very important, subtle message that changes the way that people think about Ellen White in a positive way.
Yeah. Does this is just a bit of a side question, but who publishes all the Ellen White material? Is that via the White estate, and what do they call that publishing arm?
Yeah, I think it's I think her work is owned by the White estate, and as far as I know, that is the controlling arm of the legal arm of the rights to Ellen White's writings.
And they're set up as a separate entity to the GC, but are within the GC building.
Yeah.
So I wonder if royalties are distributed to the GC as well.
That's you should have Matthew on to discuss that. I think he might.
Matthew's watching.
He could do that. Michael Campbell might be able to discuss that. Maybe Kevin Burton. He's actually part of the White estate because of his role at the Center for Adventist Research.
Right.
So those guys probably could talk about maybe the royalties. I think I read somewhere about that when Willie White was the head of the White estate, and it was very much a kind of family controlled thing.
Family business.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Does Spectrum magazine have its own building? You've got your own location?
We do. Yeah, we have a physical office.
Do you own
does
Spectrum own the building, or is it leased?
It is owned by my predecessor, Bonnie Dwyer, and her husband. They bought it when her husband and she decided that she needed to get out of the house and not run Spectrum from
the garage,
the room, and like 25 years ago. So, and they just needed to. So they've got this
sublease it at
basically a bungalow business, and it works really well because we can store our archives there and we work there, and it costs us $600 a month to rent it. Yeah, so basically they make
they're keen to have it happen.
They just basically keep it's like many things with Spectrum. We just have generous people and we try to make good financial decisions.
Yeah. So there's good landlords.
Really well.
They're good landlords. And are they still involved?
Bonnie's on the board. She pops by the office every once in a while. I go out for lunch with her, talk with her, get advice from her.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And how many paid administrators and are there on board? Like, is it a one or two, or is it kind of set up like a small business?
Yes.
No, tell me to shut up if I'm prying. I'm just interested in business.
No. I am the only full-time paid person. When I first came on, we had 2 full-time, and when I realized, we kind of, and we had different working arrangements as well, but our budget is I'll tell you, it's about $400,000 a year. So it's pretty, we swing way above our weight. And we really are careful with our funds. And that's a mix of a couple of granting agencies. I just brought a new one on, and then donors of different, who give different amounts. Lots of people give about $500 a year to us. We call them the Advisory Council. They've been around for several decades. But then we have people who pay about $100 a year to get the journal. So we have a bunch of those, close to 1,000. So it's a kind of a mix of all these different parts. So it's me, and then the bookkeeper and office manager, Sophia Lindgren, and she, I hired her right out of college, and so, and then we've invested a little bit, so she's making a good salary, but she lives with her family, so we also, that's helpful, keeps our costs low as she's kind of looking at her future. And then it's a bunch of people who kind of, I have volunteers. Like literally 20 people that we pay every month for writing, for editing, for writing like a column style or doing journalism. And it's mostly people in their teens, 20s, and 30s. So it's really about gives them an opportunity to really develop their talents, get their name out there, builds their resume as they're kind of moving from that kind of moment in, like high school, college, where you're wanting to do this sort of thing. And we provide that. We had 7 interns this summer, 4 last year, 1 before that.
And that's good for them, even if they become involved with journalism or writing in any
totally
location.
So yeah, in fact, I had someone today for our Wednesday team meeting who worked with us 10 years ago at the GC session. She was just out of Walla Walla College at the time, or university. This was a great summer, opportunity for her that built her resume. She went on to Boston University and now works for the Mayo Clinic doing communication types things. So yeah, we do think of ourselves as very comfortable with a kind of transition. I got connected to it because I liked reading Spectrum when I was in college. I was kind of in that kind of out of college, what am I going to do next? Parents praying that I, get out of the house kind of thing. And so, Bonnie very generously gave me a part-time job, and then I loved golf, so I worked part-time at a golf course to play free golf, and stayed in an apartment with my buddy who was working part-time at an Adventist school teaching, and he was also working at a golf course part-time. So we played free golf. We didn't have girlfriends at the time, so we just worked and played golf.
Hobbies and turned them into careers.
Yeah, and so Spectrum is very good, I think, at providing that kind of transitional part-time work that allows people to develop their talents. And we try to, we pay our interns minimum wage, so it's a paid internship.
And people who write articles for you, they get paid per article as well.
I would say we do kind of 2 things. When we assign an article, like Debbie, she gets paid for the articles that she writes for us, because she kind of puts together some ideas, or I kind of work together. So when we assign an article, that's paid. When we assign things to get copy edited, that's paid. When people unsolicited send us articles, then we don't pay for those. And we don't pay for what goes in the journal, because in academia, that is a form of benefit to them, because it allows them to increase their rank and tenure potential for higher earning. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts. We're deep into
I like it.
Boring stuff, but we try. We're going to do a whole audit on ourselves. We brought on a board member who's a CPA, and I thought it would be really good for us to be able to kind of do a really close look at what we do, and look for ways that we can be more efficient. And, whenever I present to the advisory council and of course to our board, I really try to be transparent about how we spend our money, the good things, the mistakes that I make, the things that we need to improve, all of that. I'm a donor to things, and I try to run it like I would want nonprofits to be run that I give to. So I try to walk that talk, and it's fun. It's really it's
great.
The team is so much fun to see developing and growing, and they're all in that kind of transitional thing. They're trying to figure out their relationship to Adventism, and we're trying to provide a supportive work environment and friend environment for that as well.
I think it's fantastic.
So if people out there know, like somebody in their 20s who's interested in writing, connect me to them. Happy to provide an opportunity for them to get their name out there.
And Dale has asked, where are you located? I think it's Sacramento. Is that right?
Yeah, Sacramento. Yeah. I saw Moto Sapiens out in Sac, so hit me up, email me. Happy to go grab coffee with you if you're rolling through town. Come see the Spectrum office. Give us a heads up before you go, because it's hot in Sacramento. So we're because I'm the boss. Sophie and I make decisions like, do we really want to do email in the office, or can we go sit in a nice air-conditioned coffee shop?
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Yeah,
we're not in there every single day during the summer.
I face those big decisions too. Fred writes, Mary Kay put the fear of Caesar into the SDA Church, where thank God it remains to this day. You are guarding this legacy, Carpenter.
Thanks. Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, she very small but mighty. And it's really interesting. We in that event that we did 3 book events, one with Chris Blake, one with Kevin Burton, and then the big Friday night one was with Mary Kay. I asked her, other people asked her, why did you do this? How did you do this? And it really is, she credits it to how she was raised. Like, it was just the right thing to do and the only option left. And that's what she, and then, so it wasn't like she was, she had a bee in her bonnet or she saw an opportunity. She just realized, I have a male counterpart. I'm the only one that can do this in the entire organization, because the law can prove that 2 people who are similarly tasked are not getting paid the same. And that is a violation of the law. And it took almost 10 years, and they proved it and made it happen.
The landscape. So, yeah.
Well, I should probably get going.
I was literally going to say, it's getting very late there for you. And I've really enjoyed our conversation. As always, they're never sealed as a farewell. As an ending. They're sealed as a farewell. And until next time.
Cool. Well, thank you, Peter, so much. Great engaging questions. And I like your agenda here. Let's keep looking forward to thinking about trad ads, and the culture.
You got to get your head around the old trad ad.
Grow that cultural thing. Culture's a good thing, folks.
And grow the little green one.
Like that.
Well, and until we meet again, thank you so much, Alexander, for taking the time, and look forward to catching up with you again. Don't forget, everybody. Well,
all right.
Oh, yes, I think someone.
I saw somebody like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What did
Theotokos? Nice reference.
Yes, I was
the God
quite
bringer.
Amazed that he noticed that, and must have zoomed in to read the writing or just recognized the picture.
Yeah.
So just a reminder, everybody, tomorrow Frank Marandino is doing our Good News Fellowship over at our new YouTube channel. So to watch that, the only way you can is to go here. Just look up at Gospel Good News Fellowship on YouTube, and we've already got a bunch of new subscribers there. So that's where our Good News Fellowship will be every week from now on. No longer here inside SDAQ&A, but I will be opening up a 3rd program for SDAQ&A as well. So we will keep having 3 shows a week, and we will have our Good News Fellowship as a whole separate fun thing. Well, until next time, thank you, Alexander. My guest today has been Alexander Carpenter, Editor-in-Chief, Executive Director of Spectrum Magazine, and we've been chatting all things 2025 GC session and beyond. So see you guys later.
All right. Bye-bye.